Welcome to Prescribing Lifestyle, the podcast that's all about empowering you to live your healthiest, happiest life. I'm your host, Dr. Avi Charlton, and each week we'll dive into the latest research, practical tips, and inspiring stories to help you optimize your well-being. From nutrition and fitness to mental health and mindfulness, we'll explore every aspect of lifestyle medicine, giving you the tools you need to make informed decisions and take control of your health. Whether you're looking into preventing disease, managing chronic conditions, or simply elevate your quality of life, Prescribing Lifestyle is here to guide you on your journey to wellness. So, sit back, relax, and get ready to embark on this transformative adventure towards a healthier, happier you. Let's dive in. Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Prescribing Lifestyle Podcast. Today I have a very special person. He wishes to remain anonymous with his name, which is fantastic and okay, but he actually is a host of another podcast. The other podcast is called Toy Division Podcast, so I'm just going to call him the host of Toy Division Podcast. So welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for that introduction where you're having to ramble around saying many people introduce me, they go, I can't say your real name, can I say no, can't. And just to explain, just in case a listener thinks, why does he want to be anonymous, why is he what has he got to hide? But saying to you, I mean, just to explain what Toy Division is. So Toy Division Podcast,
tell us about your podcast.
So it's Toy Division Graffiti Podcast. And it's the general theme is graffiti and or street art. And it's now up to episode 107, I think is the one that I read the other day. Mm-hmm. And over that time, through my work as an occupational therapist, holistic lifestyle coach, now a metabolic therapy coach, which is great to you. Talking to you. And that's why I've had you on Toy Division. So you have been a guest, just to reveal for the listeners. I reckon this one will probably be out before the Toy Division one comes out.
Okay.
So what has happened is that it's kind of morphed into a graffiti, street art, hip hop music, culture, but also tying in holistic lifestyle, the pillars of health to improve physical and mental health outside of the traditional medical model paradigm, which I know from... Yeah. Just re-looking at your flyer this morning. So I was reading a part out to someone else I was interviewing.
Okay, yeah.
Dr. Charlton has started Melbourne Low Carb Clinic with an aim to have a holistic approach to provide healthcare and nutritional information. She will discuss how to eat a real food diet, little cheering sound in the background there from me, and other pillars of lifestyle with an aim to optimize your health.
Right. Well, thank you for having.
That's all we need to say. The episode's done.
Thank you for having my flyer handy and loving my flyer.
Well, you know what I was going to say? One thing I have shared with quite a few people is the back page. And I'm showing you on the video. I know we're not going to use the video, but this, you probably can't see it.
Yes, I can see it. Yep. I know the flyer off by heart. Yeah.
eat plenty and avoid part. Because a lot of people go, well, I had a friend goes, can I eat carrots? Carrots eatable? Is that keto? And I'm like, try not to worry too much about carrots.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's sort of in between. It's not too bad, not bad. Fantastic.
Well, it's way better than, for example, on the list it says soft drinks, lollies.
That's it.
This is stuff to avoid, bear in mind.
Yes.
It's not about me.
Yeah.
Me, but
That's okay. Let's talk about you. You're an OT and you have this Toy Division podcast. Tell us about your journey. Tell us how you got into this space. What happened?
So if someone's listening and they hear occupational therapist, they might have an idea in their mind. Oh, I know what an occupational therapist is. That's someone who works with kids, or that's someone who in a hospital might dish out commodes when I've had a hip operation.
Yeah.
Or someone may be involved in mental health, has had an occupational therapist help them to recover when leaving an acute inpatient hospital. There's many different ideas, but what I always like to do is clarify what the term occupation actually means.
Okay.
Often. So let's start with that.
Yeah.
term occupation doesn't refer to paid employment,
Okay.
but actually it refers to as something that occupies your time. Occupation.
Yep.
So what occupational therapists do is we work with people to occupy their time, but also to work out ways to get around any physical, emotional, mental, intellectual, cognitive, social barriers that impact their engagement in meaningful occupations. So that's anything we need to do, want to do, or are expected to do. So for example, let's say you've had a hip replacement and getting in and out of bed while you're having the hip replacement recover is difficult. So some of your occupations that might be impacted might be washing, dressing, eating, drinking, getting out of the house, getting out of bed.
Yep.
Our occupational therapist can work with someone to enable them to be able to do those occupations because we take them for granted until we can't do them.
Yep.
Another example might be someone who's very depressed, someone who's very anxious, is finding it very difficult to engage in things that bring their life meaning, things that occupy their time.
Yep.
An occupational therapist can work with someone to identify what's meaningful and what's going to be beneficial, because occupation as a concept, we see occupation and occupations as health promoting, and they improve physical and mental health through engagement in occupations. However, to then flip that, you know, the Carl Jung shadow self, there is also the concept of dark occupations. So when people say occupations are health promoting and, you know, it's all about health and well-being, of course, that's the best outcome.
Yeah.
But people also engage in a lot of occupations that aren't health promoting. Smoking, drinking, being sedentary, etc. So I love that when it's not as clean cut as health promoting. Although that's my goal. I don't want to make anyone more unhealthy.
So now we know what an OT is.
Yeah.
But tell us about your background. How did you get into this space?
There you go. I got too excited about explaining what it is. But I think that's really important because a lot of people don't really know what it is. And it's an allied health profession where a lot of people don't really get what it is. And they're like, oh, no, OT or whatever. And it's even shortened down. It's like your job title. People say GP.
Yeah.
What does that even really mean? Well, we know what it means. So I got into occupational therapy through essentially working jobs that I really, really disliked. So I wasn't finding meaning in my paid occupation or my paid employment. I was, I worked in a supermarket. I left school with no qualifications, kind of went off the rails in teenage years, engaging in petty crimes, shoplifting, using drugs and alcohol, unfortunately selling small amounts of drugs and alcohol, not alcohol, drugs, recreational drugs, thankfully never sold very, very hard drugs or used very, very hard drugs.
Okay.
Heroin, crack cocaine or methamphetamine, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Then got into my 20s, had been trying to improve my health. I got into weightlifting when I was like 18, 19, got into sprint training, 18, 19. And I remember thinking, when I do exercise, I actually feel good in my mind. But I was like, and then I lost a lot of weight, put on a lot of muscle, had grown up overweight, little confidence, all those types of things that are about the self. But then I got into health and wellness, or what I thought was health and wellness.
Yeah.
But then got into my mid to late 20s, and essentially, long story short, my last job before I decided to go into occupational therapy was selling life insurance via phone.
Like a telemarketer. Is that it?
Well, there was someone else that did that first part.
Okay, yeah.
We had someone that would be calling hundreds of numbers a day. Anyone that said they're interested, I would be that second level.
Okay.
Oh,
All
just
right
put me
then.
through to one of our consultants.
Okay.
And there'd be me there frantically trying to convince someone to buy life insurance.
Yeah.
And I found it meaningless, soulless.
Mm-hmm.
I remember just thinking, I need to do something where I actually feel like I'm helping somebody.
Mm.
Because I've always had that as part of my inner self is I love helping people. Not just doing things for people, but helping. Just I wanted to help people in some way, but I didn't
Yep.
really know how to do that.
Yep. Yep.
I convinced myself selling life insurance was helping people,
Yeah. In a way, yeah, sure.
kind of.
But
Telling an elderly person that they need life insurance when they probably don't, or
mm-hmm.
convincing someone to get life insurance because they are telling them, oh, imagine if you die and your children have no house.
Yeah.
That's not nice. That's not nice. So I had an ex-partner who was studying occupational therapy, had just started, and she told me about the basic concept. She gave me that 60-second elevator pitch,
Yeah.
which is why we really, really got drummed into us. If someone asks you what occupational therapy is, be able to explain it.
Yep.
Be able to explain what we do as a profession,
Mm-hmm.
because we're one of those professions where people go, no, we don't need an occupational therapist. All they do is just activities with people. All they do is prescribe equipment, and there's way more to occupational therapy.
Yeah. Yep. Great.
So I then decided to go back because I couldn't just go straight into university. I had to redo all of the training and learning to get even to a point where I could go to university to study.
Like finish your high school, is that what you mean?
Well, it was called was it called a bridging course or a starter course or something like that? I can't even remember what it was called, but you had to go and get a foundational understanding of biology, sociology.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even remember what it all was.
That's okay. That's all right.
But that then springboarded me. That took a year. That was like so I had to get basic maths, English, biology, sociology, a little bit of psychology. Boom.
Yep.
You have this little packaged up thing that
Yep.
can then give you a springboard into studying nursing, occupational therapy, speech
Yep.
pathology, physio, etc.
Mm.
Yeah. And then I did that, and then I went and studied at the University of West of England in Bristol, in England, aka the UK,
Yep.
3 years. So it's the undergraduate degree is condensed into 3 years instead of 4. They drag it out here to 4 years.
Okay.
Then did that, and then moved to Australia in 2015, in January 2015. So getting on for 10 years now.
Wow. All right. Okay.
So that's how I became an OT or an occupational therapist.
Yeah.
But I guess in the background, since probably since childhood, I've had quite serious mental health issues.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
So I think the first time I didn't really understand it at the time. So just to let the listeners know, I'm 41 years old. So I was born in 1943 then. 1983. You don't look too bad for 41. You should be 81. My parents separated when I was 11 years old, and I remember it really hitting me mentally at the time. And I first had the thought, and I was being quite heavily bullied at school for being overweight, shy, timid, because I had quite, I was overweight as a child.
Yeah.
I remember having thoughts of self-harm,
suicide
at the age of about 11. Self-harm, putting a plastic bag over my head at the age of 11. But this would have been 1994, and my parents didn't. They were essentially children themselves. Well, I suppose my dad and my mum were very young when I was born. So when I was 10, 11, they were in their early 30s.
Wow.
There was never really any thinking about, how's this going to have affected this small child? How is the bullying affecting him? How is the, limited self-worth? How is his poor diet, lack of exercise? And how is this parent's divorce and separation impacting him mentally and physically? And I essentially just got marked as a bad child.
Wow, sounds like it's quite a few adverse childhood experiences, the ACEs
There
that
was a lot
we,
of aces, yeah. And my mum,
yeah.
I love my mum, but she unfortunately drinks a lot of alcohol.
Oh, okay. Well, that's another ACE there.
Yeah. And if people don't know what an adverse child, or when we're saying ACEs, these aren't positive ACEs. These are like detrimental things to physical and mental health that have been
Yeah,
identified in childhood. So it's not an
that's
ACE
it.
in term of, a pack of cards. Oh, you've got the ace. It's
That's
like, no,
right.
these aren't winning cards.
That's right. The ACE is the adverse childhood experience. And we now know that the more ACEs we've got, the more you have chances of chronic conditions and even heart disease, cancers, and mental health conditions. So there's a lot of studies talking about ACEs now, and sounds like you've had a few.
Yeah. But I think at the time, without, I didn't realize or I didn't know about those things. They were just like,
Mm,
that's life.
yeah,
I'd try and talk to my parents about it, and they would either get angry.
yeah.
I remember telling my dad when I was 15 that I'd been having suicidal thoughts, suicidal ideation. I couldn't really,
Mm,
at the age of 15 in 19, that would have been 19, somewhere in the 90s, somewhere,
mm,
somewhere in
yeah,
the blur of the 90s, trying to
yeah.
explain to my dad, who's an ex-police officer and ex-army and ex-police,
Mm.
that I was feeling suicidal. He actually became incredibly angry.
Oh no. So he wasn't supportive at all.
He started shouting at me and saying he would, and I didn't know what this meant at the time. If you keep saying that, I'm going to get you sectioned. I'm going to get you arrested. So it quickly taught me probably this isn't a safe person. Also,
Yeah.
he was incredibly disciplinary.
Oh, okay.
So from a family of, intergenerational trauma, my
Yeah,
grandfather
yeah.
becomes incredibly angry. He has alcohol and prescription drug problems. My great grandfather came back from the Second World War with
Mhm.
undiagnosed post-traumatic stress disorder, alcoholism, etc.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
trying to explain these things to my parents at a time when I needed them to listen and be
yeah,
empathic, and a lot of it was dismissed, or I was told, oh, I was gaslit. That term
yeah.
gaslighting used a bit
Yes.
too much.
Yeah,
But it was like, don't be stupid, get over it, forget
yeah,
about it, keep those feelings inside,
yeah, yeah,
oh, any feelings.
yeah.
And then I found recreational drug use. And that
Mm,
really helped me to keep that inside. And I'd drink
yeah,
alcohol and I'd feel confident. And I'd smoke
yeah,
cannabis really heavily.
yeah,
Suddenly, would you believe this? Drinking and smoking weed or
mm,
smoking cannabis, then all the people that had been kind of bullying me and
yeah,
marking me as a nerd, because I am an
yeah,
internal nerd, were
yeah,
like, oh, you're cool, actually, you're all right. So then I found that as, oh, okay, if I smoke weed and I
mm,
drink alcohol and I act like a little shit, sorry to swear,
yeah.
you can blur that out, then I get self-worth. I feel good about myself.
Yeah, yeah,
Feel a sense of purpose and connection where I felt very socially isolated for a long time.
yeah, yeah. You probably numbed your feeling and then you got accepted into that group of people as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing I also found out as well was
Hmm.
if I'm funny and I make people laugh,
Yeah, yeah.
they like me and they leave me alone.
Fair enough.
So if I'm self-deprecating, then that almost stopped the bullies because I would mock myself before they could mock me. So again, an interconnected, tangled web of complexity and
Yeah,
layers, as all people are, as all of us are.
yeah.
The
So
problem
yeah,
was that
yeah,
that recreational drug and alcohol use just got worse and worse
okay.
and worse and
Yeah,
worse.
yeah, yeah.
And
Mm.
through unintentional and or intentional things, I nearly passed away
Oh, really?
twice in my 20s. Once due to a really bad, well, I say really bad, it's relative. an acquired brain injury, double skull fracture and a brain hemorrhage.
Oh my God.
And then the second time, an accidental fentanyl overdose.
Oh wow. How did you fracture your skull?
It's not really known, but it's
Okay.
most likely that it was a combination of being heavily intoxicated, being punched in the head and hitting my head on something,
Oh
and
my
then
God.
being attacked somewhere between me leaving the party where I'd been punched and being found at the local supermarket with blood pouring out my eyes and
Oh
ears.
my
And
God.
yeah,
Did you stay in hospital for long?
I think it was about. I mean, that was a blur. Obviously, well, not obviously, but I was in the specialist brain injury ward. I think I was in the acute brain injury ward for about 3.5 weeks. But
Okay.
at the beginning, they were forecasting that I was going to be kind of disabled intellectually and cognitively and physically disabled for the rest of my life.
Oh my God.
So, and I didn't know where I was either because I was completely delirious.
Yeah, yeah.
Where I was, I kept thinking I was being kept prisoner.
Okay.
You know, a lot of the symptomology of, say, Alzheimer's dementia, where someone might think they're being held prisoner and they're trying to break out.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So you've had a combination of drug and alcohol, ACEs, and traumatic brain injury.
Yeah.
And then what happened? You had a combination of mental health illnesses after? Is that what happened?
I mean, just the whole way through. I'm going to put my headphones in so I can,
Okay. Yep.
if this makes any difference. Because I've got this on loudspeaker and my wife's in the other room probably hearing this. I have told her all this.
All
This
right.
isn't the big reveal. Just let me know if there's too much clattering sound with the
No,
headphones.
it's all fine.
So I guess the whole time, and this is the thing, it wasn't this one thing happened and then I got mentally unwell.
Hmm.
I think it's just been a continuous roller
Yeah.
coaster of mental health issues.
Yeah,
The thing that I did,
combination of everything.
yeah, well, the biopsychosocial model of
Yes.
why do things happen? As
Yep.
we know, we love to think of things as quite a linear. This one thing happened, someone says, what's the trigger? And I'm always like, well, it's not just one thing because we've
Mm,
already talked about ACEs. So if we've
mm,
talked about the trigger,
yeah.
it's not as simple as what is the one thing that's just happened which has
Mm,
caused your mind to feel, on your mind,
mm,
body, and brain to feel like this. But there's all the other variables and factors
mm,
which tie into, for example, two people can go through a very similar traumatic event, but actually it doesn't mean they're both going to experience the symptomology of PTSD, post-traumatic stress
yes.
disorder. There's so many
Absolutely.
other variables.
Yeah.
But one thing I did find was exercise, movement, what I did or didn't eat, what I did or didn't drink,
Mm-hmm.
so alcohol.
Mm,
I know that when I drink too much alcohol, I feel terrible because
yeah.
it is a depressant.
Yeah.
I realized that lifestyle was something that I at least had control over to some
Yeah.
degree.
Yeah.
Long story short, that then led me down I've gone into occupational therapy, become an occupational therapist,
Mm-hmm.
but also then finding the work of thought leaders in the metabolic psychiatry
Mm,
world
yeah.
and hearing about these little things inside our cells called mitochondria.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the other thing that I would say is that I was really disillusioned when I first went into occupational therapy because I was bright-eyed, bushy-tailed.
Mm,
Oh, you can help people do the things they enjoy doing, therefore they'll recover from their mental health problems.
yeah.
Done. Next person. And I quickly realized when I went into actual practice
Mm,
that it's not as simple as that.
mm,
And there's so many factors. But when I started hearing about metabolic psychiatry,
mm-hmm.
I'd already been applying ketogenic, low carbohydrate style eating to my own physical and mental health, predominantly to lose some weight because I
Yeah.
thought I was eating healthy
Mm-hmm.
because I've been following the standard guidelines. Eat
Yes, of course.
every 3 hours. Make sure you get your whole grains. Don't eat any fat.
Yeah.
That actually, unfortunately, brought about almost a severe eating disorder.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
was binge eating,
Yep.
vomiting it back up again, and then binge eating again.
Oh, wow. All right.
So what was probably happening there was my body was screaming out for the right nutrients. And I know that's a
Yeah.
debatable topic,
Mm.
but I applied at first. I found Rob Wolf's work. So
Okay.
I paleo. What's paleo? And
Mm-hmm.
I applied a Paleolithic style eating pattern to things that essentially just eating whole foods.
Yep.
That made a
And
big difference.
great.
I lost a lot of weight. I felt better. I had more energy. I then
Yep.
came across because the other part of this whole story is I developed chronic persistent pain in my late 20s.
Mm-hmm.
So I was having pain in my hips, my back, my shoulder, my neck, my hands, my
Mm.
feet.
Okay.
And I was very much following a medical model. There must have been something wrong or
Mm.
broken or damaged.
Yep. Yep.
Going through the traditional medical system didn't bring about any. So I would see a osteopath, chiropractor, specialist sports
Mm.
medicine doctor, all these without realizing. And I have to say sorry to one of my ex-partners because she did say to me in my late 20s, she was like, oh, well, there might be some psychological stuff going on.
Okay.
And
She
I
realized.
and I went off at her.
Yeah.
No, I don't need you telling me this rubbish. That's not science. Now I look
Yeah.
back and I just think I wasn't ready or wasn't able to think maybe it's not just damage. We
Yeah.
want an answer. We want the medical model answer. Anyway, so long story short, as part of trying to work out how to deal with my chronic persistent pain, which now is pretty much
Mm.
completely gone,
Great. Okay.
which is fantastic. But
Yep.
what I was missing was I was looking at the top of the pyramid. What's the damage without looking at the bottom of this pyramid and making up? What's my sleep like? What's my
Okay.
stress like?
Yep.
What's my movement exercise?
Mm-hmm.
What's my psychological belief and thinking about pain?
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Then I found Dr. Laura Mosley and David Butler's work, the
Mm-hmm.
Explain Pain work, which is
Mm-hmm.
pain neuroscience.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is going somewhere, trust me. I found podcasts
Mm-hmm.
about autophagy,
Mm.
fasting,
Mm-hmm.
and I found bulletproof radio. Now, people don't know who Dave Asprey is. I can't listen to him anymore because I've kind of gone off his stuff now. I don't know why. I think it's a lot about selling things and it's very much like Silicon Valley tech bro sort of stuff. But,
Oh,
if that's just
okay.
personal taste.
I have heard of
But,
him. Yeah. I don't follow
but
him
his
closely.
podcast was the first one I heard where they talked about autophagy,
Okay.
mitochondria,
Yep.
cellular recycling,
Mm-hmm.
the reuse of scar tissue, DNA, dysfunctional proteins being recycled and reused when you fast.
Mm.
And I,
Absolutely.
and I remember thinking, maybe I've got dysfunctional cells. Maybe I've got dysfunctional these mitochondria things he was talking about.
Yeah. Well, you're on the right ball.
What I think I've now realized was I think I was chronically inflamed.
Yep. Yep.
So you can see that a lot of but now I realize the mental health, the
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle, there's no
Mm.
biology without psychology and there's no psychology without biology. That's
Yeah.
something I
Yeah.
remind myself and try and inform people
Mm.
about. But now I've become so passionate about the benefits of mitochondrial health in relation to mental health. Because to go back, what I was saying is I came out bright-eyed and bushy-tailed,
Mm.
and people were like, most people with chronic mental health issues, it probably won't get better. And we've been taught at uni recovery, growth mindset,
Yeah.
then being chucked into a mental health system, both in the UK and here in Australia, where
Yeah.
take your meds, there's nothing we can do. You're going
Yeah.
to have schizophrenia, you're going to have bipolar for the rest of your life. And hearing Chris Palmer talk about people going into remission,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I would hate or dislike to think it's just because you've gone low carb.
Yep.
But
So did you have a diagnosis of mental health? What did they diagnose you as?
I think there's many different diagnoses.
Yeah, yeah. What did you get?
I mean, I know I've talked to you about this before. But the diagnostic criteria, the DSM-5.
Yep.
So here's the list of symptoms. These are the medications that you can use to fix these things.
That's it. Yep.
I mean, depression, bipolar, psychosis. This is where I'm really disenfranchised, because labeling somebody or me with all these different, I met a GP once. I think I've told you this. I met her and I said, and this is when I still, and no offense to your profession, but I'm going to sound offensive, I completely lost all faith in the medical system after going to see GPs in relation to mental health, because they were either did chat. Well, this was after, so I'd had a really long period of really bad depression.
Yep.
I couldn't work for about 6 or 7 months.
Mm.
It was probably the worst it had been in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really debilitating. And this GP met me, and she was very, posh, well-spoken English lady.
Mm-hmm.
This is in Australia. And she said, you seem very enthusiastic. I think you have bipolar. Here's a medication. And gave me a really strong, and I went, you've only met me for, this was after 10 minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
First time of meeting her, and her labeling me with bipolar. And I remember saying to her, well, no offense to you, but you're not actually a psychiatrist, so you shouldn't really be dishing out diagnoses. That made her even more angry.
Okay.
Well, you're manic. The way you're speaking is so fast. And I was thinking, well, that's ironic, because the way you're talking is really fast to me. But that's when I lost all faith, because I remember thinking, well, meeting someone for 5 or 10 minutes and labeling them due to your own biases and or thinking and or points of view.
Mm-hmm.
I then had it where going to a couples therapist, the suggestion of, has anyone suggested you might have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder? Mm-hmm. At the time, I thought, well, I've heard of this. I know what that is. I work with kids with ADHD. I know what ADHD is.
Yeah.
And a lot of the over-diagnosis and over-medication of young people and people of all ages in relation to ADHD. Then went to see a psychiatrist who was an ADHD specialist. So there's definitely a biased lens there.
Yeah.
No blood tests, no scans, nothing. And I know you can't just scan someone's brain and find out they've got ADHD.
No.
Within 45 minutes, he prescribed me dexamphetamine. I thought, you know what? I've been really struggling. Maybe I should give it a try.
Yeah.
I did take them, but I then was listening to some really good audiobooks. Johan Hari's book.
Yes.
Stolen Focus or Stolen. I can't remember the name of it now.
I've heard of him, but I haven't read that book.
That's really, really good. I listened to the audiobook. He's a really good investigative journalist.
He's fantastic.
Johan Hari, I actually saw him live at the Sydney Opera House at the was it the Festival of Dangerous Ideas, and he was talking about Stolen Focus, why you can't pay attention, how to think deeply again, Johan Hari. And that's him going into why a lot of us have our attention and focus impacted by the modern environment, and how diagnosing everybody with ADHD, and he doesn't say yes it is or isn't.
Yep.
What really worried me was I had that diagnosis, and I thought, okay, but then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 plus friends in the last 5 years being diagnosed with ADHD.
Wow. Okay.
Now, that might be because I associate with people with similar symptomology.
Yeah.
But as always, I'm concerned that people being over-diagnosed and over-medicated, because a lot of research has found that anyone who takes a stimulant medication has more focus and attention than taking a stimulant medication. So it's a very hot topic and one that I'm very passionate about, because I don't want to discount or not believe in someone's personal experiences, but to just explain people's physical, mental, emotional and social struggles through a diagnosis and a prescription of medication is really myopic, and it doesn't actually address maybe that root cause that a lot of people have.
Absolutely. So maybe you had bipolar, maybe ADHD, maybe depression, and you had all these
Maybe
labels.
psychosis, maybe
Yeah.
this, maybe that, maybe this DSM diagnosis or that, or you've got these symptoms, or you've got those, and take this medication because that will fix that, and this will do
Yeah.
that. And I kind of got to the point where I was like, well, okay, all right, whatever. And, in my work, I work with people who are stuck in the social care system who have
Mm,
25 different diagnoses that have been
yeah.
made by 20 different psychiatrists over the
Mm,
years.
okay.
And I know that if it was simple as the old model of it's a brain imbalance, it's a neurotransmitter imbalance, which I don't
Mm,
believe in at all. And I'm 100%, 99.9% would suggest you don't believe in either.
mm-hmm.
Diagnoses are fantastic, but they're not just giving someone a medication. And I'm really passionate about that because I think that's what's fueled Toy Division. Because being put on a medication, you can have horrendous side effects.
Mm, yeah. So, yeah,
Polypharmacy can be really detrimental to health at any age.
absolutely. So that's just not just for mental health, but lots of other
Yeah,
diseases and conditions as
yeah.
well. Absolutely.
It's
That's
not
what
root cause medicine, is it? And
exactly. That's what
and
I'm
to and to say that we
trying.
can work it out, but I would say any psychiatrist really should do an integrative bloods panel.
Yeah, that's why I'm so passionate about prescribing lifestyle and trying to take people off medication.
It's a tough era to be in though, because that's
Mm.
actually seen as, without opening up a Pandora's box, that's actually seen
Yes.
as a partisan way of doing it. That's like a political ideology. If you're saying lifestyle, how the recent Senate hearing in the US was labeled as woo woo, where you had like thought leaders, Chris Palmer, Max Lugavere, all these people who I respect, and that it wasn't a right or a left or a center or a libertarian. It was like the US health system and the US
Mm,
health is really poor. And we need to do
mm,
something about it. Otherwise, the medical industry is going to implode. And I would say, unfortunately, Australia, in many ways, and the UK, where I'm originally from, is going
yeah,
down a similar path.
absolutely, absolutely.
So
So
I've
tell
opened
us
up a
what happened.
Pandora's box. Sorry.
Yeah, tell us about, yeah, let's go back to you. What
Yeah.
happened then? You found all these Chris Palmer, you
Yeah.
found your lifestyle, and then what
Yeah.
happened then?
So I guess I found that if I adopt a ketogenic style eating pattern and if I use the, blood ketone measurement,
Okay.
I don't take medication anymore. That was my main goal. I don't take medication. That
Mm,
doesn't mean that I suddenly only started eating meat and suddenly I didn't need medication. I
mhm,
think one of the other reasons why I stopped taking medication was because there was a worldwide shortage of Vyvanse, which was the slow
mm,
release amphetamine that I was
yep,
prescribed.
yep.
That was obviously really difficult. And I got told, oh, well, you'll need to book in another appointment with your psychiatrist to get prescribed a lower dose. That's going to cost you $400. And I remember just thinking, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep, because, you can get prescribed 6 months and then you have enough.
Mm,
And then I just thought, I need to try and work out a way of, and can I apply the brain energy theory to myself? So Chris
mm,
Palmer's book, I would recommend to anybody and
yep,
everybody,
yep.
whether it's
I have,
audio book or the
yeah,
actual book, the brain energy theory.
yep.
And I thought, right, okay, if I can do that, will that manage the symptomology of my ADHD, psychosis, bipolar, blah, 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 blah. Turns out, if I actually follow that, yes, it does.
Great.
When I go off that path, things get difficult again. Now,
So you managed to get off medication by applying
yeah,
all these things? Yeah?
and that wasn't necessarily just, I think the main motivation was there was no, there was a worldwide shortage of Vyvanse, and it didn't matter how many pharmacies I went to, no one could actually dish me out the meds. So I had to go cold turkey, which I don't
Okay.
recommend to anybody. Obviously, if you're prescribed medication by a psychiatrist, and ideally it would be a psychiatrist,
Yep,
especially when it's
yep,
psychiatric medications,
absolutely.
don't just stop, because the withdrawals can be as horrible as the symptoms right in the beginning. So make sure you work with a medical professional to adjust and taper your medications.
Yeah.
Because I think I got to this point where I was like, people shouldn't take medication, it's terrible. But then the more I've listened to Chris Palmer, Georgia Ede, etc., they've really re-emphasized, and going on Metabolic Mind on YouTube.
Yeah.
So that's how and that's not to say everything's perfect now. Actually, in the last few weeks, I've been really struggling mentally, but I think of that holistic style thinking. I've re-listened to Brain Energy, and people think that mitochondrial health is just about what you eat and what you drink, but the whole lifestyle part, which is what you champion and I champion through Toy Division, our mitochondria aren't just made healthy through ketogenic style eating, social connection, sleep, stress management, what we do or don't eat, belonging, purpose, our life experiences, trauma. So all these little parts of mitochondrial health. And I've realized I've been overworking and overstressing about work. And I worked out I've had how many days? I've had like 12 days off work this year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So probably I've overstressed my mitochondria, maybe.
Yeah.
Just maybe.
So now you're working on slowing down a bit?
Yeah. Having a break. But ironically, I'm then recording 2 podcasts today, which I've already done. And I think that's what I love about, and I know I keep saying brain energy theory, but for me, the fact that it tied together so many of the things that I see as influence to health, whether it's mitochondrial health or just health and wellness in general, it tied together so many things. And I think it provides hope for people, because I work with people who have had schizophrenia or the symptomology of schizophrenia, psychosis, bipolar disorder, ADHD, autism. And I'm not saying those are things, especially when it comes to things like autism, people can be very much offended when I say it's something that can be improved. They're like, how dare you? It's how someone's born. And I'm not disputing that. But just let's think, okay, if I eat better quality food, if I focus on really good quality sleep, if I move more, if I manage my stress, I have purpose, engage in meaningful occupations, I can be healthier as a human being, which will relieve and or assist with the symptomology of virtually every condition, physical, mental, emotional, social.
Absolutely. Yes, I totally agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. I think people get offended when they think they've been labeled, there might be genetics, they might have been diagnosed with autism, they think it's a birth trauma. But to say that you can fix it with lifestyle, they don't like it. But it's just improving the symptoms and helping you manage the condition.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? And I completely agree with that. And that's why, I see you as a GP, just to let everyone know. You can cut that out if you want, but because
That's right.
a holistic view of health is the future. And the more traditional medical model doesn't want us to do that. There's a lot of barriers in the way. There's a lot of, I get told by dietitians on a regular basis, you can't make comment or recommendations about lifestyle, especially diet, because you're not a dietitian.
Really?
And I think, well, that doesn't mean that I can't understand nutrition science, does it?
Yeah.
And I actually think often a lot of people who are training in a specific lane as such, for that feeling of purpose, I listen to a lot of stuff by Sean Baker, and I know you've been on his podcast before.
Oh, yeah.
About how surgeons are taught to think. And Casey Means, the book Good Energy, which I'm frantically reading at the moment, as you can see here.
Okay.
Halfway through.
Yep.
She's an ex, I think, Stanford trained surgeon that just realized it was like a production line of just like medication, surgery.
Yeah.
And just realizing that there's so much more that can be done. And I think without telling anyone how to live their life, because if someone wants to sit at home, watch TV, drink 10 beers a day, eat loads of burgers, not that there's anything wrong with burgers, loads of like McDonald's or whatever, and do cocaine one night a week. I would never encourage any of that.
Of course.
People have free will, but
Yep.
to know if you feel bad
Mm-hmm.
or you don't feel great, or you're told the only solution to this issue is take a tablet, which makes you feel actually even worse.
Yep.
There is other ways to adjust and change your life for the better. But I also think the individual responsibility is there, building culture and belonging and making it easier for people to access, like GPs like you, who actually look at holistic lifestyle. You're seen as, correct me if I'm wrong, an outlier. I'm seen as an outlier, an occupational therapist that talks about metabolic health and movement and exercise and diet and nutrition and belonging. Oh, you're an outlier. You're an oddball. You're not following how you were trained. And you can see I get on soapboxes quite often. So
I love your passion. Tell our listeners about the Toy Division podcast. Tell them what people will expect if they go onto your to go and listen to your podcast.
Well, the first thing will be, obviously, is that people will hear the word graffiti and think instantly, oh, graffiti is something that teenage, mostly male, thugs do, and there's no thought behind it. It's actually one of the biggest art movements in human history and has existed since the 60s and 70s in various parts of the world and continues to grow and bring culture and meaning and belonging to people. But it's a double-edged sword because there's obviously illegal acts involved quite often, but that's something which is discussed on Toy Division
at
length, because there's so much more to it than just a teenage boy who's angry and has a joint hanging out of their mouth drawing on a lamppost. There's way more to it than that, but that's a whole other discussion. That's a sociological project maybe I'll do one day, but I guess you can have an intelligent and thought-provoking and I guess at times quite funny discussion about culture, meaning, artistic creation, the power of art as humans, that music, dance, etc., but also health and wellness ideas. I do episodes all about sleep, mental health, chronic persistent pain, etc. I mean, I've done an episode with you. I did an episode. I've also recorded one with Nicole Laurent that I did recently. Got her on, which was great, and I probably mispronounced her name again. I did try and get Chris Palmer on, but
really?
His gatekeeper said he's not doing any podcasts at the moment. They probably saw the title and thought graffiti podcast, ugh. But doing a series on the metabolic therapy or metabolic mitochondrial health.
Okay.
They're trying to bring this information to people that are graffiti writers, but also to enlighten people that graffiti isn't just a mindless act. It's a double-edged complex entity, as all human beings are, from a emotional, psychological and physical perspective. Things aren't simple, but things can be simple, and you can change the quality of your life with some simple levers.
Very interesting.
Go. Vague. It was a vague description, wasn't it?
No, that's great. I'll encourage all my listeners to check out your podcast, the Toy Division Podcast.
So if they want to find it, it's available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I try to put it on all the different platforms.
So
it's on like Amazon Podcasts, if that even exists anymore. I don't know.
I don't know either.
But yeah, just look up Toy Division Graffiti Podcast, because there is other ones. Toy Division is another podcast that is about toys.
All right. I'll put all the links in the show notes.
Right.
Great. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for spending the time with me.
No problem. And sorry if I got on the soapbox too often.
Very, very interesting experience. And I love your story, how you share all the pillars of lifestyle. I love it.
Yeah. That's the last thing I'll just say to anybody. Just always know there's some sort of hope, and there's things that can change, and there's also people that care about you and people that can help you to continue on your journey, because often hope is one of the most important things when we're feeling terrible.
Yeah, I think it also empowers the listeners to search it for themselves and rather than rely on the pill that they were prescribed.
And if they're in Australia, they should check out the Melbourne Low Carb Clinic and you as a GP, because I was hoping that you would be the GP that I was looking for, and it turns out that you are, and you have been. So there you go.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your
I'm blushing now. Oh no, you should be blushing.
yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much again. And thanks for listeners to staying tuned. As I always say, if you don't look after yourself, you can't look after anybody else. So thanks again, everybody, for listening. Thanks, Toy Division Graffiti, for coming on.
Whoever the hell I am.
All right, then.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Prescribing Lifestyle Podcast. Before we wrap up, I have an exciting news to share. I have a new ebook called Low Carb Made Easy. It's now available. This guide is perfect for anyone looking to dive into the low carb lifestyle. Inside, you'll find the basic theory behind low carb eating, a detailed food list, practical meal plan, and a variety of delicious recipes. It's designed to make a journey to better health easier, simpler, and enjoyable. For those who prefer a hard copy, head over to my website and register your interest using the link provided. My website is www.mlcclinic.com.au. Head to online store. Remember, the information shared in this podcast, it's for educational purposes only and not proper medical advice. Always consult your medical professional before making any changes to your lifestyle and diet, or you can come and see me in Melbourne Low Carb Clinic. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and stay connected with us on social media. Your feedback will help us improve and reach more listeners. Lastly, if you found this episode helpful, please share it with your friends and family. Together, we can make a positive impact to our health and our communities. Thanks again for listening, and as always, stay healthy and happy. Until next time.